The mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "O woman, what have you to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now 6 stone jars were standing there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take to the steward of the feast." So they took it. When the steward of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Every man serves the good wine first, and when men have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. This has been the word of the Lord.
Well, I haven't got around to planning my funeral service, but if I ever do, this may actually be a part of the service, this Bible reading. It has a rather strong significance for me, and perhaps I should tell you the story. 40 years ago this year, as a young man of 24, that's right, I've just had my birthday, and so I'm 46 now and enjoying my dyslexia. Yeah, 40 years ago, I felt the need, I felt the call of God on my heart. I started attending a little church in Melbourne. In April of that year, on April the 10th, I knelt and gave my life to Jesus Christ. Not long after that, some of my friends thought this was all a bit strange and wanted to know about it, and so I started doing a Bible study out of the Gospel of John with them. Not long after that, somehow or another, I got roped into being a youth group leader. I'm not quite sure how I got talked into that, but I did. And I'm glad I did, because I got to meet Michelle a year later because she was youth group leader of another church. But anyway, coming up to this point in time, as we were working our way through the Gospel of John, we were having a youth group night, and they'd all come to my flat. And because I had not been a Christian, I must admit that I'd been quite a drinker at times and had been known to be quite intoxicated. And sitting on the bench of my kitchen were 2 bottles, one of Johnny Walker whiskey and one of Bundaberg rum, and both were about half drunk. And actually, they'd been about half drunk for most of that year. It just seemed as though I didn't really need the alcohol anymore. I hadn't stopped drinking. I didn't choose to stop drinking. I just wasn't drinking. In fact, I don't think I'd had a drink all year. Anyway, at that youth night, there was a lad there, Greg. Now, Greg was the sort of lad, if there was going to be a problem, Greg would be in the midst of that problem. He just got a job at Coles and brought home his Stanley knife and was proudly showing off his Stanley knife. The next day he came home from work, he was proudly showing off 4 stitches in his left hand, courtesy of his Stanley knife. This was Greg. Well, anyway, Greg decided it would be fun, and he's 14 years old, to pose for a photo with a bottle of Johnny Walker. I took the photo, and I felt a real pit in my stomach. I looked at him standing there, and I said, "Greg, you know what? You don't drink that. Your life is going to be tough enough as it is. And you know what? I don't need it either." took that bottle off him, and I picked up the other bottle, and I pulled the caps off, and I poured them down the sink. And I guess that day I became a wowser, a non-drinker. And I've been that way ever since. And it's because of my love for bringing the gospel and trying to bring redemption to the lives of young people. Not long after that night, we progressed in the Gospel of John. We were now starting chapter 2. And what should I read but this story of where Jesus gets water and he turns it into wine. Well, I've got to tell you, that threw me into the pack. I raced into town to the Keswick SU bookshop that was in Melbourne in those days, and I scoured the shelves, and the only thing I could find was a book. I can't quite remember the author's name. It might have been Keith Murray, I think. Had a book called The Day the Plonk Ran Out and Other Stories from the Big Book. And I'm thinking, this is not going good. And as I tried to research the subject, it was happening at a time where we were throwing off the old hymns. You know, church used to be very staid and stiff, and we'd all be sitting in our pews. And you know, I can still remember Mavis Rona on the organ there at the Prezi Church, and she'd play a few chords, and we'd all stand up, and we knew exactly what to sing and where to sing. And there had been a formality in the church, and a strictness and a stiffness. And our generation was saying, no, we don't want to worship like that. And so there was also a throwing off of this thought that we had to be abstinent and that we could drink and not sin. And I thought, wow, how am I going to reconcile that with what I'm reading here? How do I, in this whole, how do I bring this all together? This was the nightmare of, what is the Bible saying? What is real? What is my life? What is my ministry? How do I tie all this together? Well, I've got to tell you that the Word of God is absolutely awesome. And that week, I fell in love with the Bible all over again. Probably it was just awesome. And I want to go through the passage a bit with you today. Look, I'm aware it's already 10 o'clock, and if we do this in detail, you'll be going to 11 o'clock there, and I'll say, yeah, I'm only up to point 2. So please, we are going to power through this in a few minutes. And it was the third day. Pops up. A little while later, Jesus says to his mother, my hour is not yet. And then at the end of the passage, we have the phrase, this was the beginning of signs that Jesus revealed, and the disciples believed in him. When we run those three together, we begin to see something that is very different going on. And the more I study it, and I have studied this a lot, I even wrote a paper on it in my final year at college. It was for my sub-major in biblical studies in the New Testament. So this is fairly heavy stuff we've got here. I really could keep you here till midday, believe you me. But we won't. When we see the phrase, the third day, this is John, the old evangelist. And what we need to understand is that the Gospel of John was written much later than Matthew, Mark and Luke. Matthew, Mark and Luke were narrative accounts, and we call them synoptics. They were the accounts of 3 eyewitnesses, and they said, well, it started back here, and this is what happened, and happened, and happened, and happened. And so it goes through the life of Jesus. And we find that they marry up, and at times they were almost exactly the same. Now, these 3 Gospels were written by 3 independent witnesses, somewhere between about 40 and 50 AD, probably in the period of 10 to 15 years after Jesus died. But John's Gospel was written much, much later. And John was aware of the other Gospels at the time. In fact, he at the end of the book, he says, if you wrote everything about Jesus, you could stack books up to the moon. But he selected a group of stories about Jesus that would show us not just the story of his life, but give us an insight into who he is. And that's why he wrote this gospel. And so when he starts talking about the third day, and he does this, we take notice. And I believe it's in the Gospel of Matthew, around about chapter 12. The Pharisees are giving him a bit of a hard time. And they say to him, what sign are you going to show us? And he says, I'll give you the sign of Jonah, where he was in the valley of the lake for 3 days. And so this 3-day reference is a reference to the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And it has to be understood that way. But there was on the third day, there was a marriage, and it was in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of Jesus was there, and Jesus and his disciples were called to the wedding as well. And then we get to verse 3, and something very interesting happens. We're told in most translations the wine ran out. You know, and we get people writing books like The Day the Plonk Ran Out, and this idea that Jesus came and he said, this is no good, we're having a wedding, we all ought to get pickled, let's pour on the plonk, you know. This was the idea that was getting very commonly bandied around. And the trouble is, when we push it, it really doesn't hold together. Now, the word we're translating in most Bibles as ran out is actually a form of the word hysterical. And what it really means is a failure. What it means is something's gone wrong. And it could be that they had run out of wine. But more than likely, it's talking about the fact that the wine had failed. Something had gone wrong. And when I researched this, I discovered that the wine that they would have been using was a little bit different to the wine we have today. They used a different process to make it. Incidentally, what is it, the ABV, the alcohol volume that they measure. Light beer, I believe, is around about 3 on the scale, 3%, is that right? 2.9 to about 3.2, something like that. Regular beers around about 5. Yeah, well, this stuff comes in at 4, right? Our wines today come in about 11 to 13 for a regular wine. So this is a very different drink. And what would happen is that when they put it into the vats and they sealed it into the vats, maybe the seal didn't quite take. And so the oxygen got into the wine, and when you put oxygen into this sort of wine, you get vinegar. Now, I would call that a monumental fail for a wedding wine. So could you imagine it? Because in the wedding ceremony, we do things like exchange rings. You know, you've been to the wedding with this ring, Ivy wed you, and so the guy grabs the finger and puts the ring on the girl's finger. You've seen that happen. We've all seen that happen, haven't we? Probably most of us have done it. Well, in the Jewish marriage at that time, what would happen is the groom would get a cup filled with wine that he had bought. You see, it was the groom's responsibility to provide the wine for the wedding. And so he would have a cup, and it was very much like our communion service. And everyone would have their little goblets of wine all charged up. And so he'd have it, and so he'd say, this wine represents me giving my life for you. And boy, I wish they had a video camera there to see the expression on the bride's face as she takes a sip of this wine and it turns out to be vinegar. Could you imagine that? What a horrible, I can understand understand the mother of Mary getting up to Jesus and saying, "Son, this is going really bad. Did you see that? Did you taste that? How can this poor guy start his married life off with giving his wife a drink of vinegar and saying, 'This is what I'm promising you'?" This is the problem with God. And Jesus makes this comment, "What to me and you? What to me and you?" And so, what does that really mean? We don't have a translation for it. It's one of those phrases. I'm sure those of you that are from the Pacific Islands, you would probably have phrases that you would say and you go, "How on earth do I say this in English?" Do you ever have that problem? I think you do. Really, the sentiment behind it is, okay, I'm on board. I'm going to do this, but my reason for doing it and your reason for asking it are completely different. It doesn't quite come out in translation, but that's what's going on. Now, at that point, Mary turns to the servants. And if you take anything away from today, take away the words of Mary. As she turns to the servants and she says, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now that's the best advice anyone's ever going to give anyone. Whatever Jesus tells you to do it. That's good advice. So anyway, Jesus organises the servants, and we read the story. You know, they got these 6 pots that are for purification, and they're made out of stone. And we could spend half an hour talking about that. You can see how that could be useful, talking about purification and the job of getting us ready for the kingdom of heaven, etc., etc., etc. But let's not go down that road today. We don't have time. And so they take the cup to the master of ceremonies, whatever you call him. It's a strange word, and we don't take that word. He's an architriclonio, is his name in Greek. We call him the master of ceremonies, the master of the feast, the groomsman, whatever you want to call him. That sounds pretty good to me. And he tastes it, and it's been turned to wine. And he's amazed. He's amazed. And he makes this comment. You know, usually people give the best up first. And then when everyone's had their drink, they bring out the worst stuff. I guess that's how you get the guests to go home early, otherwise they'd be there all night drinking your reserve. You know, it's... But the idea, there's a deeper idea in that usually in the feast, the actual feast would probably go for 2-3 hours, the ceremony, and during that time there would be 4 of these small cups of wine that would be drunk during the service. They weren't getting people. No way they got people. It was a sin, it was a crime. They were zealous for the law, they would not get drunk. And so anyway, then they would water it down and they would cut the wine down, probably till it's about 1/4 wine and 3/4 water, and do that. And this is what the groom's commenting on. But what we pick up out of this is something very different. You see, the wine had spoiled. Something had made it bad. In Psalm 104 verse 15 we read that the Lord had given us wine to make glad our hearts. And I have more than a few relatives that would like to nail that up on the wall and say that's their motto for life. But something went wrong, and that something is called sin. That sin had turned our world upside down. The wedding is symbolic of Christ coming and taking us as his bride. And that up to that point, there There had been a bitterness in life because of sin, and there had been a breakdown in our fellowship with God. But once his time had come, once he had died on the cross, once he had risen from the grave, once he had delivered us and become our Saviour, once he had brought in the new life of the new covenant, Jesus becomes so much better than anything else we could have come. When the disciples saw this sign, they realised that they were looking at the promised Messiah. They realised this was the one who was coming, who would take that which was bitter, which was broken, which was failed in life, and he would make all things new. And because of that, they believe in him. This story is critical to our understanding of the Gospel of John. Where the other Gospels have an account of the Lord's table, and on the night he was betrayed, he broke the bread, and you do that, you can read it in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and you can even read it in 1 Corinthians. John doesn't have that account. The only thing he tells us about the Lord's Supper is that after he washed their feet, he got a bit of bread, he dipped it in the wine, and he gave it to Judas, and the devil entered him. This becomes the communion talk of John. This is his promise that if you are walking with him, he will freshen and make things new. This is the promise of God and the glory of God revealed. Amen.
Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus. Let's sing one verse before we leave for morning tea. Let's stand together.
Father, as we go forth, let us go forth with the Christ of promise, whose glory was revealed that day in Cana of Galilee. Let us go forward in the fellowship of God, in the knowledge that he makes all things new. Let us go forward with the hope and the glory of God. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God bless. Have a great week.
Stay there, very good.